Hey you, yeah you, right there. When I say coding, what does it make you think of? If you can feel your heartbeat quickening and your head already coming up with excuses and why it's too complicated, then you might want to stick around for this video. So you see, coding is very intimidating for a lot of people. They look at all these complex programs and video games like, man, I could never make that. But you know what? That is the same thing as looking at an Olympic level athlete and going, man, I could never play that sport. Gotta start somewhere, right? So, first, I'm going to show you a program that I wrote. So this right here, it's asking you to enter a dollar amount. Now, if it's $12.50, you'd ignore the decimal, so you do 1,250. But it works pretty much the same way. And it'll tell you the minimum amount of coins it'll take to make up that dollar amount. So I'm just going to put in a number here, press enter, and bam, look at that. All the coins that'll make it up. So that's pretty cool, but you know what a lot of people don't think are pretty cool? Words. Here are the words that make up that program. Now, most of them are not going to make sense. In fact, likely all of them, and that's okay, because that's what this is for. I'm going to tell you what to do. First things first, you're going to need a way to code. Now, I'm using Java, so I'm going to teach you how to code Java. You want to download Notepad++. The reason I say that is it has lots of fun colors, so you know what you're doing wrong. That's the main reason I like it so much. So, you go to this website here, click on install, and let the installer run, and after that's all done, you'll now have Notepad++. The next thing you'll need before you get to coding is the Java Development Kit. Throw that into a Google search, press on this link here, scroll down, and then press that download, and then run the extractor. And then, when the installer is going through, it is going to ask you where you want to save it. Now make sure that you save it in your user file. So it's usually whatever your name is, so I have mine as Tyler, because that's my name, obviously. So just throw it right in there and rename it to something simple, rather than JDK 16.01, name it just Java. That's what I did. So, now that you have that all ready, it is time to code. So you're going to open up Notepad++, and this is what it looks like. Very nice, very sleek. And the first thing I'm going to get you to do is go to the language at the top there, go down to J, and select Java. Remember those pretty colors I was talking about earlier? That's how you make these happen. Every program needs to start with these two things to tell your computer that you would like to run a block of code. So the first bit is public class, and then the name of your program. We're doing a very simple program this time called Hello World. And what Hello World is the first program that anybody makes. It is just simply telling the computer to print out Hello World. So I'm going to name it Hello World, and with Java and programming in general, naming conventions are in place to make everything look nice. So whenever you're naming a variable or a file or whatever, you want to have the first word have a lowercase letter for its first letter, and then every subsequent word has an uppercase letter for every word. So in Hello World, it'd be lowercase h, hello, uppercase H, uppercase W, world. So if my program is called My First Java Program, it'd be lowercase m for my, and then uppercase letters for first Java and program. Now that you've done public class Hello World, you're going to put a curly bracket to indicate that it's opening a block of code. Now you're going to press enter, and Notepad, since it's in Java, will indent it real nice for you. And you're going to put public static void main parentheses string with a capital S, it's very important, square bracket, closing square bracket, space, args, parentheses, and then you're going to put another opening curly bracket. The reason that the S needs to be capitalized in string is because that's just the name of the function, a string. One of the biggest mistakes, besides forgetting semicolons in Java, is just forgetting an uppercase. So usually if your program won't compile the first time, you just messed a little thing up like that. Now that you have all that written out, you're ready to start the actual program part. And we're going to learn about our first function. So this first function is very useful. I use it all the time. Everybody uses it all the time. It is called println. And what the println function does is it prints the line. So you're going to press enter, so you're on a new line, like this, and you're going to put system, capital S, just like the string, same reason, .out, .println for print line. You're going to put parentheses, closing parentheses, and then a semicolon. Now, within the parentheses, you see you've already done this, you put a set of quotation marks. And what the quotation marks do is it says that this isn't a variable, it's actually just you're printing out the straight words. I'm going to put in between the quotation marks, hello world, and then I'm going to close the two opening curly brackets that I did earlier, so I'm going to put two curly brackets. And what's really nice about Notepad++ is that whenever you're highlighted over a curly bracket, it'll turn red to show you the joining curly bracket. So you just need to keep putting curly brackets until the top curly bracket up at the top there is red, which is very, very nice. And you need to put the closing curly brackets to show your computer that it doesn't have to keep looking for code because it's not there, you're done. Save it. Make sure that you put it in the bin of the Java file we downloaded earlier, and then save it with the exact same name that you put at the top of your program. So lowercase h hello, uppercase W world. So now that you've written out the program, you might be wondering, how do you run it? Well, let me tell you in just a second. You're going to open up the search bar, which in Windows is just on the bottom left for me, and I'm going to type in command prompt. You're going to type it in until you see the little black box beside command prompt pop up. You're going to click on that, and it's going to open your command prompt. Now this is going to be your best friend and your mortal enemy, because it is very picky, but when it works, it works. What we're first going to do is we just need to find where the file is. And if you remember, I told you to put the Java file in your user directory. That's because when you first open a command prompt, it is opened to your user directory. So if you put it right there, you just have to type less. So it is purely out of laziness, but it is awesome because you have to type this a lot. So I'm going to type at the path where mine is. So it's already in C users Tyler. So if you go in your File Explorer, it's in the Tyler folder, or whatever your name is. So I'm going to put CD to show that you need to go into a directory, Java, which is the next file, and then /bin, which is the next folder. So if you look in Tyler, we have that folder we named Java earlier. Within that name Java, there's a folder named bin. After you press enter, it'll navigate into that folder named bin where we just saved our hello world. Now we're going to need to do something called compiling. And what compiling is it takes the words that we've written down and turns it into language that the computer can read. And the command to do that is javac, so JAVAC, all lowercase, space the name of your program, so hello, uppercase W world, then you put .java at the end of it. If there were no problems in turning it into computer language, which there shouldn't be if you follow this correctly, then it'll say nothing. It'll just make a new line. So that's good. Then, to run your program, you're going to type Java, just JAVA, no uppercase, space, then just the name of your program, no .java. So in this case, it's Java space hello world, and you press enter, and the command prompt prints out hello world, which is exactly what we wanted it to do. Now, if you get an error when you're compiling, you have to go back to the file, like the actual Notepad file, edit it, save it, and then try to compile it again. The three biggest sources of error are number 1, forgetting semicolons, looks like this. Number 2, putting too many or too few curly brackets, and that looks like those that I just showed. And the third thing is putting an uppercase when it's supposed to be a lowercase, or vice versa. And that'll look something along the lines of this right here. Usually it tells you what the problem is in the command prompt like I just showed you. So you go back to Notepad++, fix the problem, save it, and try to compile it again. And fingers crossed those are the only problems, so you can save it and compile it, and it compiles fine. And then try to run it again. And if it runs fine, then perfect. You've coded. Congratulations. Now, of course, it gets a little more complicated after this. So you may be wondering, what's the point of just making the computer say a word? You can just type that out. Well, the print function isn't just for words. We can also do math. So open up a new one. I already have it set up a little bit here. And we're going to declare 3 variables. And you might remember variables from math class as being letter replacements for numbers, but in this case it can be letter replacements for anything. In this case, we're declaring the variables as integer values. And what an integer is, it's a number without any decimal places. So we're going to go on the next line and put int space. We're going to declare 3 integers. We're going to declare x, y, and z as an integer. You can just declare it by itself, or you can declare them all together. I like to declare them all together because it makes it look neater. So int space x, comma, space y, comma, space z, and then put a semicolon. Trying to call on one value, I would just do int x, semicolon. Then we're going to set number values to all these variables. And we're going to have x equals 5, y equals 6, and z equals 2. At the end of the program, we're going to have a print statement. And what this print statement will do is it print out the answer. I'm going to put x plus y times z. And we're going to close the parentheses and then put a semicolon. For multiplication and dividing in programming, multiplication is done by an asterisk, which is Shift 8 on my keyboard, and division is just done by a backslash, which is Shift and then press the question mark button on my keyboard. To do a square root or something to the power of something else, we can put a little hat, which is Shift 6 on my keyboard for squaring or cubing or whatever. But then if you want to do square root, that's a little more complicated. So just know that if you want to find the square root of something, it's the same as putting it to the power of 1/2. So you just have to put whatever to the power of 1/2. It's a little annoying, but it works, and that's what matters. So anyway, if we compile this and run it, then it will show us that the answer is 17, because 6 times 2 is 12 plus 5 is 17. Now you may be asking, well, that's all good and well, but it's still just a program that prints out one thing. What's the point if I could just write that out myself? So next we're going to talk about taking user input. So we're going to make a program where we ask the user to put in their first name, then their middle name, then their last name, and we're going to rearrange it to be last, first, middle. We're going to set it up like it told you, but then at the string line, before you put the curly bracket, you're going to type out this. Now, I just copied it because it is significantly easier to just copy it and not have to worry about it. But it is throws, uppercase I-O, uppercase E exception, curly bracket, input stream reader, all starting with uppercases for all those words, space in stream equals new input stream reader, parentheses system.in, closing parentheses, semicolon, new line, buffered reader, stdin equals new buffered reader, parentheses, in-stream, closing parentheses. So you see why I just copy and paste it, because that's so much to remember and there's really no need for that. So once you have it in one of your notepad files, you can just keep copying and pasting over and over again. And one thing I forgot to mention is whenever you want to have user input, you need to put a little extra thing right before the public class at the top. So even before the public class, you can just press enter to move it down if you forgot about it. You're going to put import space java.io.asterisk and then put a semicolon. Now what this does is it calls upon a Java library, which is a whole bunch of functions, kind of like the print line, that allow you to do more stuff. In this case, it is the readLine function, so it allows us to take user input. So we're going to set up 3 variables. They're going to be strings, and remember string is with an uppercase S. So we're going to do string fname for first name, comma mname for middle name, and comma lname for last name. And don't forget the semicolon, because it's very easy to forget the semicolon. Now that you have those all set up, what we're going to do is we're going to put a print line statement to tell the user we're looking for their first name, because you can't just put that you're looking for input, because then the user won't know what to do, because it'll look like the program just isn't working. So I'm going to put a print line statement, enter your first name. Then on the next line, we're going to put the variable fname equals, and then this exactly, stdin dot read uppercase L line, opening parentheses, closing parentheses, and then a semicolon. And what this does is just says to assign whatever the person puts in as a value to this variable that you've created. So you can do the same thing for middle and last name. And then at the very end, we're going to put a print statement, and we're going to do the L name plus, now I'm going to put quotation marks, I'm going to put a comma and a space just to make it look nice, because if you were to just put L name plus F name plus M name, there would not be any spaces in between the names. So it's just a little tidying up, which makes it look better. So after the quotation mark, you're going to put plus F name plus quotation mark space quotation mark, put another space in between the first and middle name, plus M name, closing parentheses, and a semicolon. So now that you've done that, you can go ahead and close the curly brackets, and if you compile and run that, it should ask you for first, middle, and last name, and then print it out in order of last, first, middle, just like so. Sounds very exciting, but what's the point? Well, you can go a little bit farther, and this is as far as we're going to go today, and we're going to do variable math. So, start a new program, import java.io, set it all up nicely, and put in the thing I showed you earlier. You can just copy and paste it from the last program. And then we're going to define 6 variables. So, the integer variables will be the same as before, x, y, z, but now we need string variables as well, because whenever you take user input, it's always going to come out as a string variable. But you can't multiply and subtract strings. You need to turn them into integers first, or whatever other number value. In this case, it's integers. So we're going to create 3 string variables to take the data. I'm just going to call it UX, UY, and UZ for user, and then those things. So I'm going to put a print statement just to tell me that this is X. And then we're going to do UX equals, then the read line, and then on the next line, I'm going to put X equals integer dot parse int, make sure that integer and int both have an uppercase I, Then in the parentheses, we're going to use the variable that we're trying to turn into an integer, which in this case is u of x. Close the parentheses and put a semicolon. If you want to turn it into a different data type, you do the same thing, except replace integer with whatever data type you're trying to turn it into. Like if I want it to be a double, which is a data type with decimal places, you would do double dot parse double equals, and then parentheses, and then whatever it is. So it's a very handy tool. So we copy that for y and z, and then we do the print statement for the exact same function that we did earlier, which was x plus y times z. And I'm going to put answer is again, so it's exactly the same as last time. I'm going to put the semicolon at the end, and I'm going to put 2 curly brackets, and then I'm going to compile and run it. When I run it, it's going to ask me for an x value. If you did it right. If you didn't do it right, look over it again and make sure that you're doing it right. Because you see, I forgot to import java.io, which of course doesn't make it work, and then sometimes I spell string wrong. So it's all just trial and error pretty much. So when I compile and run it, it's going to ask me for an x value. I'm going to put in 5 like earlier. It's going to ask me for a y value. I'm going to put in 6 like earlier. It's going to ask me for a z value. I'm going to put in 2 like earlier. And it says that the answer is 17. Now I can try it again with a few different numbers here, and it'll give me the answer. And it is just doing the math, which is pretty cool. And of course can be used on a very expanded scale. This is very basic programming, but it's what you need to do to learn. So that's all we're going to touch on today. But if you think about it, you know a lot more about computers than you did before. Now I think programming is very important to learn because the way that we're going as a society as a whole is just more towards computers because they're pretty cool and they can do our math homework. Speaking of math homework, you could code a program to just solve all of your math problems. Just a thought. Ask Mr. Gauntz if you want to know how to do that. So anyway, join computer science. It's a cool course, it's useful, and you can do stuff like this. Thank you very much. Have a good day.